Hello, everyone. Welcome to Civil Clarity Reports. I'm one of your three hosts, John Noel, along with Jody Kirk and Marty Espinosa. And today we will be interviewing Mr. James Brett.
Really good to be here. How did I get involved with the Proud Boys? It's kind of funny. There was a friend of mine, and I made a comment about Antifa and wokeness and BLM and all the Summer of Love ongoings. And this person said, "How can you criticize Antifa when you're not criticizing the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys?" And I thought, and I was like, who the hell are the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys? And I did a little research, and the big Boogaloo Boys were, they seemed like a bunch of LARPers to me. And the Proud Boys resonated with me. I listened to Gavin McInnes talking at the time. Not very impressed with Mr. McInnes these days, but I heard him talking about American men being American men. And it seems to me like masculinity is under attack, Christianity is under attack, Second Amendment, First Amendment. These are all things that are under attack. And if you look at the Proud Boys tenets, these are things that they advocate. They are strong proponents of the freedom of speech. And to clarify something, I've been at rallies before, and we've actually protected those from the other side who have a right to speak and state their claim, have the right to entertain discourse. And we just want people to be able to be heard. No matter your view, you still have the right to be heard. The Proud Boys is by nature a drinking club. We meet once a month. We're not a militia. And at the end of the day, it's a men's club. It's a fraternity. It's not a militia by nature. However, we do have strong views of American values. I literally was praying about, after being in the Proud Boys, I've been to Portland, DC on December 12th for the Stop the Steal that time. And then I was praying with one of my Proud Boy brothers and praying for clarity and praying for God's guidance, because that's what him and I do before embarking on anything. We first take it to God in prayer, and overwhelmingly we were called to go there and redress our government in an election we felt was stolen, which is our right to redress our government and take grievances to our government. When we got there, our primary goal, we had a meeting the night before, just kind of talking, and then we shared some beers and stories, and there was no planning for an insurrection. There was no illegality that was discussed, nothing of that nature. But our main mission on the next day was to keep people safe, as we do at rallies, from the likes of Antifa, who we knew were going to dress up as Trump supporters. And now, even though the DOJ and the FBI came out and said there was no evidence of Antifa being there, and now we find out that they were very deep involved in that day. We even have a letter expressly from a member of Antifa saying we had over 100 members there. So when it comes down to it, we wanted to keep people safe from attacks, people on the right safe from attacks by Antifa, so that they could have their First Amendment upheld. And what turned out was anything other than what we were expecting. We did not expect what happened that day. Many of us were really, really caught off guard. And then, your brain kind of clicks into, pardon my French, oh shit mode. What's going on around us? And for example, during the initial, they call it a breach, but when people move the gates out of the way that are now proving to be federally involved, people didn't see any gates, so they naturally went out to the Capitol. At that moment, when we were in front of the Capitol, Capitol Police came out, and I will say this very clearly, and I state it, and I mean it. There were people in the crowd that had ill will. There were people in Capitol Police that had mercenary motives. That's a fact. But the large majority of Capitol Police and protesters had no idea what was going on. We started while we were protesting and being peaceful. We started taking concussion grenades. We started taking rubber bullets at head level, which then goes from less than lethal to lethal. Those concussion grenades were being thrown from closer than 40 yards, which again is lethal. And that's what agitated the crowd, and that sparked off a lot. A lot of officers were caught off guard, and they weren't there initially. Then you have officers flooding in who are unaware of what happened in the previous hour, who are just trying to keep their fellow officers safe. And then you have people who are watching women get hit from behind, agitated because I know you gentlemen would not watch a woman get hit from behind, and stay there and just do nothing. So there were people coming to the defense of innocent protesters that were doing nothing, with their backs turned to police, getting assaulted. And here's my thing. The people who hit police, I don't endorse that. I don't endorse laying hands on a law enforcement officer. That goes nowhere good. That's a brainless move. It's not going to end well. The police who violated their oath by hitting people from behind, like women who were just standing there, I don't endorse that either. I endorse law, order, upholding the law, upholding your oath. And what happened from that point forward was, I call it a peaceful protest that ignited by portions of police that did not uphold their oath. And then it was full on. A lot of the protesters that were inside of the Capitol were waved in. Keep in mind, I've done a documentary on this called Freedom Isn't Free, and it exposes all this with video evidence. It was a horrible day overall. At the end, it started off beautiful. Like many of the rallies of the right, it was all about love of country, love of neighbor. It was good times, laughter, singing patriotic songs, chants of USA, even up at the Capitol before the onslaught of bullets and concussion grenades and that violence. Before that kicked off, people were saying the Pledge of Allegiance and singing the Star Spangled Banner. There was a group of women that stand out in my mind because I'm Catholic that were praying the rosary for our nation. It was moving, and it was beautiful in a lot of respects. Yes, there was violence there. No police officers died that day. However, 4 patriots did. Tucker Carlson exposed Brian Sicknick, who they said died by blunt force trauma to the head, walking around after the time that they said he was hit in the head with an extinguisher. So I think what you see here is a byproduct of what you see everywhere else around our nation. And it's good organizations being infiltrated by a bunch of corruption. And that's what's affecting our country right now. The large majority of Americans, they're good people, and they want to provide for their family. They want opportunity, and they want their God-given rights of freedom. They want the Constitution to be adhered to. And what happened that day was I won't call it a stain on our history as some of the liberals have put out there. You know, it was worse than the Civil War and 9/11, and let's just throw it on there, heap it on there. Nagasaki, Hiroshima. It was the worst thing in the history of the world. It was not, and I can tell you that. Um, our mainstream media, it sucks eggs, and their narrative that they're pushing right now has a lot to be desired. Um, I like truth. I like light. I like freedom and liberty. Um, these are things that this current regime, they've got a narrative, a propaganda narrative that is joined up with the mainstream media. And I can't wait for God to win here. And God always wins. I know how the story ends. God wins. It's in the good book. And by God, we will have our home again. This I know.
James, Marty here.
Yes, sir.
Did you take notice of any agitators in the crowd as you were going in that area? Was there agitators there? Have they been identified?
Yeah, there were agitators that we've identified via video. What I'll do after this program is I'll actually send you guys some of the video footage that I have, and you can take a look. It's profound and it's disturbing. You see people like Ray Epps. You see people in all black, and we're not talking Antifa black outfits. We're talking tactical black, almost a spec ops type of getup. That were unwinding the fence and agitating the crowd. Let's go in there. Let's take this Capitol. And they're very obviously feds when you could see the earpieces in their ear. They're using hand signals, and it was amazing to me. When you look out from the tunnel toward the National Mall, you could see, and this is something I picked up on, and Gary McBride, an investigator, a video investigator, you could see light signals coming into the tunnel from that stand, that scaffolding, where you had guys with megaphones, one of which was identified as an FBI agent. So we've got this communication going on. We had a red smoke grenade go off. And then literally you can see from the overhead view a column, almost perfect 2x2 column, just circling out like ants from the crowd as soon as that red smoke popped. So there's a lot more questions than we have answers right now. Kind of like, how do doors that weigh many tons and are magnetically controlled mystically open when pulled on by an old lady and a young man? Doesn't happen. So, and I have the video evidence where you can see the guy next to the doors look up, point, and make a hand signal, and then the doors open. So there's it's disgraceful when you look at a lot of the agitation and what I saw to be a very well planned out operation. When we were coming down the National Mall as well, you looked and there was a building as you're facing the Capitol coming down the National Mall. It was on our right hand side, and you looked up on the building and there was a tower there. It looked like a big mushroom, and there were gentlemen in all tactical black guarding that tower. It was not there 2 days prior, and it was gone the day after. What I've come to learn is that is a facial recognition tower. They also had data towers, 3 data towers that were set up to collect cell phone data, and we've got pictures of those. And it was a digital hog pen. we were pushed in, and they tagged all of us little sheep, and they came and they raided our houses, which is a whole nother story, which bothers me to my core. My FBI raid kills me.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, James, that the Proud Boys have been kind of made the, symbolic agitators of January 6th. And one of the biggest accusations of them has always been that this is a white supremacy group, that it's a hate. And and I apologize, I'm going blank on Enrique's last name, but the president of it, he used to be. I think he's in jail now, unfortunately.
He is.
Yeah. Okay. And I just want, go ahead, please.
Enrique Tarrio is Afro. He's probably the most lackluster, oxymoronic white supremacist I've ever seen in my life. One of my best friends that I came into the club with was actually African American. We have people of every skin color, every race, creed, sexuality. We've got gay Proud Boys. It's not based on skin color. It's not based on theology. It's not based on any of that. It's a love of America, a love of Western culture. So we believe the West is the best. We want to be proponents of Western culture, because there's a beauty to Western culture where you look, this culture, the Renaissance and all the scientific gains, technology gains, a large majority of those have come from Western culture. Architecture that is amazing. And I just don't want to see that culture end. That would be a sad moment in history.
James, are you facing legal problems?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
They charge me.
To what extent can you tell us about anything that might have happened? The second part of my question, when all this started taking place, all these events and actions, and you were there, what were you thinking at that time, and what was your response to all of this, and what happened to you during this and after this, shortly after that? What happened? What happened to you, and where did you go?
Okay, so I can tell you this: I am being charged with civil disorder, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, and entering and remaining restricted capital grounds. Looking at a maximum of 7.5 years. I can say with absolute conviction, I did not touch anybody that day. I did not enter the Capitol. I did not steal. I did not vandalize. The Capitol building was listed as open that day on the internet as well. So that's a little conundrum as well. So when it all started, we went up. I heard somebody yell very distinctly, "Trump's going to speak at the Capitol. He's coming to the Capitol." Which, if you listen to his speech, he said, "I'm going to go down to the Capitol. We're going to march, and we're going to peacefully and patriotically make our voices heard." So that wasn't a stretch to think that he was going to speak at the Capitol. So we're going forward, and then we start getting shot at. I look and I see they're starting to record. So they're recording the crowd. And I turn around and I said, "It's a freaking trap." And I started telling everybody, I'm like, "Mask up, women and children need to get the heck out of here." And then after they started shooting at us, I looked at one of my brothers that was there and I said, "I got to get the hell out of here." I said, "I've got 5 kids and I can't get caught up in this." I said, this is a false flag. And he agreed and we left. By that point, I'd been shot at. We had concussion grenades going around. I had pepper spray in my eyes. We went over to the food trucks and then came back to get our brothers and try to get them the heck out of there after we left. And then we ended up right in front of that tunnel. And that's a whole nother story, which I really can't get into. And it's a very deep rabbit hole. But we ended up in front of this tunnel. Next thing I know, we're in that infamous tunnel and the crowd's pushing back and forth. And I remember yelling and I'm hearing people scream. Now I know that was Victoria White getting batoned in the head. Just the daylights beat out of her. after I had left, I was in that tunnel, probably 36 inches away from where Roseanne Boylan was beat to death by Lila Morris, a Metropolitan Police Department officer, beat her with a big, it was like a wooden stick, dowel, whatever it was, but she beat her when she was unconscious. She ended up dying that day. Lara Logan's doing an expose on that as well. Jake Lang is doing one, trying to get the truth out there about that. So as the police are pushing us out of this tunnel, because you can't move, there's people pushing from behind, people in front of you, you can't move. And I'm yelling, get me the F out of this tunnel. Let me out of here. I break around the side near the wall, and I managed to get near the entrance. Well, the police were pushing forward. I had my back turning and leaving, not engaging, but leaving. One of the Metropolitan Police officers batoned me in the rib, and I had a cracked rib, and then he pushed me down the steps. When I had my back turned toward him, not engaging him, not participating in violence, I like I said, I don't touch police officers. It's not in my creed. After that, I went down. An oath keeper rendered aid to me, put a compression tourniquet around my ribs, and gave me a shot of whiskey. And then I left the Capitol grounds. A lot of my brothers did not leave, and they were caught up in some really awful situations. Heinous situations, in fact. What was I thinking? I was thinking, oh shit. They set us up. That's what was going through my mind. They set everybody up to make the Trump population the populace of conservatives. And no matter what the media tells you, there were 2 to 2.5 million people in DC that day supporting him. Every street you looked down was filled as far as the eye could see. At one point, the National Mall was filled. It was an amazing showing of conservative Americans with traditional values that felt like they've been gypped. And I believe we were set up that day. I really do, to bastardize our movement. And when I saw people singing, praying, all this, guys, there was nothing insurrectionist about it. An insurrection is not what you saw that day. Number one, people don't show up to an insurrection without a manner of carrying that out. There weren't weapons there. There wasn't a massive armed force there to take over the Capitol. They didn't take over the Capitol and then maintain the Capitol. They went in taking selfies, respecting it. The Proud Boys made people pick up trash, for crying out loud. Like, pick up the trash. Don't touch things. Don't destroy anything. And you can see videos of that all day long. An insurrection doesn't line up and go single file through the Capitol. It's just not what happens. A lot of the informants, the CHSs that were there, were some of the most egregious ones that were trying to spark violence. And that's just not how our movement is. We're a God-fearing, Constitution-loving populace that just wants to be free. We want our voices heard. And they did their best to squash us that day.
There are many people that day, James, that are not allowed due process, that have been highly misrepresented. What is actually being done? I mean, is there funding for those that have been charged and that are being, no due process rights? I mean, this is something that you would think the ACLU would be involved in. Of course, they're not, though. I know that there is the ACLJ. Are they Jay Sekulo's group? And do you have organizations like that are contributing to the defense of people on that day?
luckily, I can tell you that there are many support groups that are getting behind J6 defendants. And you've got to understand that a lot of people like myself, their homes were raided in pre-dawn raids. Their families had guns pointed at them. My 1.5-year-old daughter and my lady had dots all over them, and I was at the back of the Bearcat and could see this. That still messes with me. My brother, Joe Biggs, he's been in jail for over 2 years now. His 6-year-old daughter, Savannah. And keep in mind that Joseph Biggs is the recipient of 2 Purple Hearts and served our country meritoriously. His daughter walks around with a picture of him, which she talks to like it's her dad. She's 6 years old and hasn't seen her dad in almost 3 years. And this is the kind of story that is common. Jake Lang has been in since, I believe, February of 21. Still hasn't received trial, and it's looking like it's going to be October or February. My trial won't even be until probably March or April. That's about all I can say about my legal process. But it's egregious, and no, we haven't received due process. They're still using the guise of COVID to push the speedy trial waiver on defendants because, you know, COVID caused the backup because you couldn't expedite cases, and it's a bunch of bull, honestly. It's just good Americans that right now are feeling like it's 1776 again, in the respect that you're being taxed and not represented. You're not receiving your God-given rights. The Constitution for us has been trampled on. I have no way of defending my family should somebody break into my house, and I'm not convicted yet. My lady can't even have a firearm in our house. Her rights have been affected by me being at January 6th. That, in my mind, is egregious. There's that little saying that shall not be infringed in our Constitution, and it's been a rough road. What gets me through this is God, my faith in God above. He brought me to it. I believe I was born for this, just as much as people back in the 1700s were born to set a structure for our country. Maybe I was born to help expose the tyranny that has now pervaded our government again. You're born for a reason, and I feel like I was brought to this by God, and He's going to get me through it.
You certainly are carrying a cross.
God bless you. Everybody here, and I know everybody listening, wishes you the absolute best moving forward.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Well, everyone, thank you once again for another episode of Civil Clarity Reports. We will see you next week.